Hi, this is Eugene from 5 Minute Economics. Today we're going to do some coverage on the Singapore Budget 2020. Now, before we start looking at the budget, I think it's apt that we look at some challenges that the Singapore economy is currently facing. Singapore economy saw the slowest growth that we have ever seen in a whole decade, and we only registered a 0.7% economic growth last year in 2019. Now, that's the first issue. The second issue is that unemployment has also been slowly creeping up. Our lowest unemployment ever registered is 1.9%. As of last year, our unemployment rate was around 2.3%, which is higher than usual. So unemployment is surely creeping up as well. Now third, let's look at exports. We know that exports is a key engine of growth in Singapore, but exports were declining for 11 out of 12 months last year, only seeing a slight recovery in December 2019. But we all know what happened after that, the COVID-19 outbreak. Now with this COVID-19 outbreak, MTI has revised its GDP growth estimate to between minus 0.5% to 1.5%, which means there is a possibility of a recession happening in the year 2020. Now let's explore what are the challenges that the Singapore economy is currently facing. Our first challenge is to try to keep unemployment rate in Singapore low. A decrease in demand for goods and services, we expect firms will want to lay off some workers to actually keep their costs low. And so to help counter that, the government has come up with this scheme called the Job Support Scheme. What is this Job Support Scheme? It is similar to what the government came out in the 2009 budget. In the 2009 budget, the government rolled out a jobs credit scheme. In this year's budget, the government rolled out a job support scheme. Now what is this job support scheme? The government will basically cover for 3 months 8% of the total wage bill for firms, which means to say that firms will actually see their costs coming down, and this will help them to keep workers employed. Now, with payments only due to come in July, will this be too late for firms who are facing cash flow issues? Now, that is the one thing that I have in mind for this specific policy. Now, let's move on to the second challenge today that we're exploring. Now, I think the very important thing to do is to help firms that are heavily affected by the COVID-19 outbreak. Now, specific sectors like tourism, aviation, restaurants, private transport, even retail, these are all affected because number one, we are seeing less tourists from other countries. We have travel restrictions placed on Chinese tourists, and Chinese tourists form one of the largest group of tourists that comes to Singapore. And out of the 80 million tourist arrivals every year, 3 million are from China. So that is going to have a significant impact on our tourism. And this is not all, because most people, including Singaporeans, will also be avoiding the crowd. They will be preferring to eat at home rather than to go out. They will be doing online shopping as opposed to actually physical retail shopping. Now this is going to affect the revenues of retailers who are actually already not doing well to begin with the decline of retail. So the government's solution to this is to actually provide very specifically targeted support for these sectors. Now first, we have the Adapt and Grow scheme, which the government is providing extra money for firms to actually retrain and upskill their workers during this time frame. Another policy that the government is rolling out to deal with this is to actually provide rental rebates. Now, how these rental rebates work is that those companies or firms or businesses that actually rent from the government agencies like NEA. So hawkers are getting a full month rental rebate from the government, while other commercial tenants, like when they rent from HDB, they are getting a 2-week or half-month rental rebate from HDB. So this will actually help these firms to actually defray part of their cost. And lastly, for private properties, the government is also giving property tax rebates, which they are hoping landlords to pass on these discounts to their tenants to help them to defray rental costs. Now let's move on to our last and final challenge today, which is that we want to boost the already limping economy. Our economy was already limping before. You look at 2019 performance, and that is even without the COVID-19 outbreak. So with this COVID-19 outbreak, it is likely that our economy will come to a standstill, at least for the next few months. Now, so the final solution that we are discussing today is part of the expansionary fiscal policy that the government is rolling out, which is to stimulate spending in the economy. How is the government going to stimulate spending in the economy? Now, first, the government is giving transfer payments to households. Each individual in the household that is a Singaporean will receive between $100 to $300. The second way that the government is stimulating the economy is to actually provide corporate tax rebates of up to 25% for firms. And third, the government is also increasing spending on education. Now, this all forms part of your expansionary fiscal policy, where the target is to actually increase government expenditure or cut taxes in order to stimulate an increase in aggregate demand. So with an increase in aggregate demand, real national income will increase, which increases economic growth. Now, with this stimulus package being taken, we will see that this is actually the largest expansionary fiscal policy stance that the government has actually taken in the last whole decade. So hopefully this helps to save the economy. Now, here's one thing about today's budget that we did not discuss, which is the proposed hike in GST. Now, the government has proposed that within 2021 to 2025, they're going to hike GST from 7% to 9%. So here's a question for you. Do you all think that the GST increase of 2% is necessary to keep our country going? Let's hear your thoughts in the comment section. Now, that's it for today's episode of 5 Minute Economics. We'll catch you on the next one.